joined by Greg Katz, and we are looking ahead to USC's trip to Boulder to take on the 3-1 Colorado Buffaloes. That is the number 8 USC Trojans on the road for a 10 a.m. Mountain Time, local time kickoff. That's 9 a.m. for USC fans in Los Angeles and Southern California. It is breakfast with the Buffs for the Trojans this weekend. That will be an interesting piece of this. But let's jump into this. 4 downs. First down for us, as always, we're looking at the USC offense. Greg, your one thing when you're watching that you'll be watching when that USC offense is on field.
I'll be watching to see if Lincoln Riley allows the running game to have a bigger effect than in the past, because Colorado is so bad at stopping the run that, if they're going to be that bad about it, of course, I'm sure that there'd be a lot of pressure for Caleb to get his statistics on national TV. After all, if you're going to get up for a 10 o'clock game in the morning and you're going to showcase it to the East Coast, I'm sure that there's got to be a lot of multiple messages that want to be sent out. And I'm sure that Caleb is expecting to play the whole game, or if not, at least through the beginning of the fourth quarter, if it's a lopsided game.
I think that's good. I mean, the run game for sure. For me, it's, and we heard about it from Lincoln Riley. We heard about it from offensive line coach Josh Henson. We heard about it from the offensive lineman this week. The operation, the execution, whatever you kind of want to call it, of the offense, it was out of sorts early against Arizona State. And I say out of sorts, right? The first drive, there's penalties. Another drive later, there's penalties, and they score touchdowns on both of those drives. Like that's the USC offense. Like what it can do, it can overcome all of those issues. But there was something off about getting the plays in, getting up to the line, kind of subbing guys in, and again, Lincoln Riley, he said sort of everything. One of the things that kept getting brought up was that first road game atmosphere, and so that's what I'm looking at. Last week was Arizona State. This week is Colorado. In terms of talent and skill that those two programs have defensively, USC's offense should be fine. How does this USC offense operate in what will certainly for the first quarter and probably longer be another crazy atmosphere? And again, there are better teams coming. You have to go to South Bend. You have to go to Eugene. Like, there are big time road environments. USC's offense, I think, in this one needs to show that it can come out and deal with both playing on the road and playing in front of a crowd that is not helpful to them. And so that'll be it for me. When they show up, those first few snaps, those first few drives, are they together? Is it efficient? Or are there still kind of, Lincoln Riley charging down the sideline and having to take a late timeout in the first quarter because the play clock is down to 3 and 2 and 1 and things like that? I'm curious how that works offensively, because let's face it, right? We've seen the Colorado defense. Like, USC's offense should be able to just kind of snap it and lean forward and pick up yards against Colorado sort of whenever they want. But being crisp and being able to execute on the road is a skill. And USC's offense this year needs to prove it, because it was, I think, sporadic, right, against Arizona State. The good thing is, late in that game, they turned it on. There's a 2-play touchdown drive, a 3-play touchdown drive. Like, when they needed to go to it, they could go to it. How consistent is it? I think against Colorado is what
I think you can do that, Erik.
When USC
I think you can do that against inferior teams. Turn it on, turn it off. But I don't think that that's a good idea with Notre Dame, Utah, et cetera, et cetera. Not a good pattern of behavior. I will say this, because you mentioned the crowd. I think they were kind of underestimating what was going to happen at ASU. I think SC kind of said, well, they're not very good. Maybe the crowd isn't going to be full. And they were shocked. They were shocked that the crowd was really into it. In a way, the schedule is actually building towards Notre Dame and Oregon, because they got a real wake-up call against ASU. They're going to go right into a place that's going to be a circus. If all the celebrities that we're hearing are going to show up, it's going to be something. And you remember, in 2 weeks, they're going to be at Notre Dame. There seems to be a kind of an escalator going up for the high resolution of Autzen Stadium. So maybe it's a good thing, but I think some of your points were very well taken.
Yeah, I think you do need to struggle a little bit to see it, right? You don't want your first bit of adversity being in South Bend, and now how do we deal with this? So, but you have to show that you've learned from it, right? You have to show that, okay, now we know how to deal with that. Now we can come out and be better. Second down, and we're going to flip to the other side. Greg, what you're looking for, the one thing you're looking for when that USC defense is on the field?
Tackling in space. I want to see that, one of the ways, of course, that Shedeur Sanders has been sacked all over the place, 22 times already. That's a hell of a beating, no matter how you slice it. And they're going to make sure, because SC seems to be really has advanced with their rush. They're not blitzing as much because the four guys are getting to the quarterback or pressuring the quarterback. So they're going to get the ball out of his hands, Shedeur Sanders, smartly out of his hands as quickly as possible, which means you spread the field. And so far, the results have not been overwhelming on the corners in the tackling department. I think they're aware of it. How could you not be aware of it when you're reminded of it every 5 seconds? So this is going to be a test for them to their fundamentals of tackling are really going to have to be in place for this. Otherwise, that crowd gets into it, and every tackle that gets missed, that crowd is going to be, the volume is going to go up. So they really have to be careful with the tackling and get it right.
That's exactly it, right? So Colorado, not only can they, or do they not run well, they don't really try to. It's not a thing they want to do. They cannot protect the quarterback. So if USC shuts down the running game, or Colorado just chooses not to try it and does not put up a bunch of rushing yards, and if USC sacks Shedeur Sanders a bunch, those are the expectations. So that would be a positive, a good thing. But you're not really grading USC on can you be good against the things that Colorado is really not good at. Those are the expectations. If you are truly the team that USC wants to be and thinks they are, you need to go do those things. What you're saying, the skill players, even, running back Dylan Edwards out in space, a couple of the wide receivers, right? Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn Jr., those guys in space, can you corral them and not give up the big play? Colorado not having Travis Hunter, that changes both sides for them. They've played a game now without him, and obviously could not have liked the results. But now the other guys know, how to pick up the slack, all of that kind of stuff. Can USC keep those skill guys down? Because Shedeur Sanders completes a ton of passes. If he can actually get the ball out of his hand, if he's not draped with defenders, he hits his guys. And then they can turn it into big plays in space. How does USC deal with that? Because Shedeur Sanders is going to complete passes. Do they go for 4 yards or 6 yards, or do they break it and go for 14, 16, or 40, right? That I think is the big thing, because when you're playing at home in front of that crowd, you get a couple big plays and you start to believe. I do not think we're talking about can Colorado pull the upset, but I think we're talking about, is it like Arizona State? Is it within 14 late? Is it within kind of a possession, as you get deep into the game? And those big plays can really help, I think, in terms of that. But the expectation, I think, for you as well, that the USC defensive line is good in this one. I mean, good and productive in this one. And again, you're not going to say, yes, now they can do that against the better teams, but you do want to check that off in this one, that it's consistent game in and game out from that defensive front for the Trojans.
And I tell you what, another thing to look for is screens and draws. They're going to have to slow up that rush one way or the other. I mean, I'm kind of surprised SC doesn't run screens and draws, but so far to this point they haven't done it. But I would imagine if you really can't run the football per se, you got to sit there and say, okay, well, come get me. And then maybe some middle screens, tight end screens, maybe a draw play may not be as successful, but screens could be. So they're going to have to be on the alert for that, in my opinion.
And that becomes the running game, right? I mean, if you can't just hand it off, run it, your screens and draws and all of that become your running game. And it was clear that USC maybe was caught off guard a little bit against Arizona State, that they had all of this kind of misdirection and pulled everything out of the playbook. You have to expect that now. You have to expect when you do have a defensive line that is good and productive and playing against a group that is clearly outmanned, you have to expect that kind of stuff to come at you. So that's going to be, I talked about the offense kind of being on the same page, buttoned up, operating quickly. The same thing is true for the defensive line. You can't get, sucked out of position and fall for misdirection and all of that stuff in this. You've got to be on your assignment and have an awareness of what's going on in this one, because Colorado's, they've got a couple athletes out there. They've got some guys that can run and do things with the ball in their hands if this USC defense gives them space. All right, let's go to third down, and this is always the fun one where you get into some picks and projections. Thanks to PrizePicks. Again, PrizePicks, the simplest form of real money daily fantasy sports, just pits you against the numbers. Whether you're a fantasy sports nut or a casual fan looking to add some excitement to the games, PrizePicks is the perfect game for you. How you play this, you're going to go to prizepicks.com, where you can download the app. Make sure you enter promo code SC, and for first-time players, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. You pick 2 to 6 players a week, you can win 25 times your money on any entry. Again, first-time users use promo code SC and get 100% of your initial deposit matched up to $100. Greg, let's take a look at what we're going with this week. So here's what I went with. I saw what Oregon did on the ground, right, against Colorado, and I saw what Marshawn Lloyd did against Arizona State. I went more on 92.5 rush yards for Marshawn Lloyd. I think he could have a big one in this one. 154 against Arizona State. He hasn't yet in his career had back-to-back 100-yard games, so maybe against trend a little bit there with him, but I think USC wants to go in there and set the tone with the offensive line and run the ball against them. And then the other one I have here is we combined on this one, kind of a fun one, the two quarterbacks in this game, Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders, but I have them combining less. I went less than 660.5 passing yards. Again, that's the two of them combined. I think gives me a little bit of wiggle room if somebody gets shut down, if USC goes all ground game, if that USC defense can figure out that Colorado passing game. Again, if like I'm saying, if Marshawn Lloyd kind of goes crazy, maybe that shortens the game a little bit, and we don't get a massive high scoring thing if USC takes control on the ground. I don't know. So that's what I went with. Greg, what do you see there that jumps out to you?
First of all, Lloyd's going to get over 100 yards rushing, because I think there's no question at this point, because I think it's established now he's the starting tailback, right?
And I may have gone more on 192.5. Like I think he's capable of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that SC's going to also want to send a message. I know that supposedly they don't send messages, but maybe they work, in clandestine CIA type of thing, that they want teams to know that they can run the ball. Here's the guy. You're going to have to stop him along with Caleb Williams. So you're going to have to divide up some way to figure out how to stop two guys. So this is a perfect time to do it. The second part is kind of an interesting one, because you have to ask yourself, how long would Caleb play in a route, if it's a route? And how long does Shedeur play if it's a route? Well, looking backwards, we know that Shedeur played almost the whole game, if not the whole game, against Oregon, because obviously they don't want to showcase what's behind him. and they want to showcase what they can do. So his chances of helping reach that 660, I don't like that 0.5. That bothers me. Right, that's the one. It's kind of like that's the okay. You didn't notice the fine print, so to speak. Now I'm going to say that Caleb is going to go over 660 because Shedeur will play the whole game. They're not going to have Caleb, waking up at 4 a.m. so that he could only play 3/4 of the game. Although the smart thing would be to put Miller Moss in there because the big tsunami schedule is almost upon us. But I think that I'm gonna roll. I'm not much of a gambler, but I'm gonna roll the dice on this one and say that they will go
more.
60. Yeah, more.
Yeah, okay. I would be a fun one, right? To see those two go. I do think that Caleb is ready for this one, right? USC has played either on Pac-12 Network or at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. I don't know if they love the 9 a.m. start. 9 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. local. Lincoln Riley talked about it, and I know I don't want to get you on that early start time.
Don't.
But Lincoln Riley said, there are some positives to just waking up and getting going. And I do know the players, they don't love the 7:30 starts because you wake up and you want to go. And then there's just this lull and this wait and wait and wait. Obviously, there's a nice middle ground there about half the day that you can move this game back or a 7:30 up. But again, that to me is an interesting point. But let's jump into fourth down here, and we're going to go with the number or the stat. Whatever jumps out to you. What is your number for this one that you're looking at?
I think I'm looking at 8. The number 8. That's the number of sacks that SC will get. Although I think it has the capability of going into double digits. There's something about, I just have this thought in my mind of Bear Alexander being in the huddle and saying, "We go hunting now, we hunting." And I think every time they smell blood like that, if you're a defensive lineman, it's who can get there first. I want to get the most sacks. So I assume once they establish the fact that they can basically run right through the offensive line of Colorado and establish it, let's put it this way. I hope there's a Lloyd's of London insurance policy out on Shedeur because, boy, he is going to feel it. I can tell you that right now. He's going to feel it.
And Colorado's had some, right? The Travis Hunter injury is kind of one of those freak things. You don't want to blame it on, he played so many snaps early because that was a hit that he took. But Shiloh Sanders, the safety now, Colorado relied so much on a few guys at the top of the depth chart, and you're seeing the injuries mount a little bit and take its toll on what that roster construction is in terms of depth and the difference between the top end talent they have and the rest of the roster. My number, so I've got two, and I touched on the one, 9, right? 9 a.m. Pacific time, that game start. USC last week, going into the Arizona State game, talked a lot about kind of understanding that this was going to be the first road test, what that environment is like, and how you need to play on the road. And it's not right. They didn't lose. They won the game. They won by 14. There were times that they played really well, but they did not feel ready to go and stand up to that environment that they talked all week about knowing was out there. It feels a little bit the same with the time this week. Like they've talked about, it doesn't bother us and we're okay and we're going to go. This will be the third time in 5 games that Colorado has played in this time slot. This team is used to it. They played TCU at 10 Mountain Time, and they played Nebraska at home, 10 Mountain Time. So they've done this before. USC, I think the Cotton Bowl last year was at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Outside of that, these guys don't have a lot of experience playing this time. So I'm very interested to see how they come out. I do think that they'll be better with the crowd and the road thing and all of it. I think there's a lesson learned from Arizona State, and this team is good enough to do that. The time thing is interesting to me. But the number I want to get into now that I've taken one number and moving on to another one, it's 12. 12 for me. Colorado, you mentioned it earlier, 12th in the Pac-12 in rushing yards per game offensively. The other side of the ball, defensively, 12th in points. This is again in Pac-12 rankings because it's the last year we get to use it. 12th in points per game allowed. 12th in total yards per game allowed, 12th in rushing yards per game allowed, all the way up to 11th in passing yards per game allowed. So I can't use that because I went with 12. But that's the defense for them this year. And Nebraska is not a good offense. I don't know if TCU is any good. Oregon clearly has an offense and put up yards. Colorado State is not a great team. So this is a defense where USC should be able to call its number, call its shot, anything like that when Caleb Williams goes out on the field. It should be something where that offense gets rolling really quickly and puts this one to bed early, because you don't want to be messing around. Saw it against Arizona State. You don't want to be messing around on the road with teams that can do things offensively late in the game. So that's it for me. Colorado's defense is not good. Not good. Statistically, not good what we've seen. They've got a couple players, but overall, this is a defense that has not done well against offenses with any kind of pulse this year. And so you'd expect the USC offense to get healthy against Colorado and go put some numbers up. So that's our look. 4 Downs went all the way through. With Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney. Thank you for watching 4 Downs. Thank you for watching WeAreSC, and enjoy USC going out to Boulder and taking on the Colorado Buffs. Early morning Saturday kickoff.